So good evening. So the hour is 5 o'clock and the date is March 19th, 2026. Oh, and there's Sean. So I'd like to call the planning board meeting to order. I'd like to introduce our planning board members and staff. To my far right, Steve Yost, Beverly Bookin, our vice chair, Jane Ramsden. I'm Rick Noonan, the chair. To my left, Greg Catamatori, our planning director, David Rosen, and Eric from the planning department. And we also have Alex Kopelman remote, and Sean Henry is a member who is remote as well. So first order of business to say this evening is a presentation by Mr. Copeland, our Community Development Director, on the Gloucester Housing Compass. And the floor is yours.
Hey, good afternoon, planning board members. I will just share my screen and get the presentation started. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to give an overview of the Housing Compass planning process and all the work done to date to fill you in on the progress we've made and what you can expect from the process moving forward, and highlight some of the key things we've learned from engaging the community and collecting data through this process. I do want to acknowledge this was made possible with a contribution from the Affordable Housing Trust and a district local technical assistance grant. So just going to start off with an overview of the project. I think it's important to think about why we plan for housing. We really want to be not just thinking about producing housing, but also protecting the Gloucester community that's here in terms of those facing pressure from housing costs, but also thinking about the next generation. Is there going to be homes available for them? Will there be opportunity to live in Gloucester for the next generation? That's why it's really important to preserve the housing that we do currently have that meets community needs, but we also need to be looking at producing new housing for a range of incomes in places that make sense.
Alex, I just wanted to interrupt you for 1 second. It looks like you're not in full presentation mode, so we're seeing 2 slides. We're seeing like the next slide queued up rather than full screen.
Okay. Sorry about that. Is it not showing you now?
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, great. So I think what I'm saying will make a little more sense now. So in planning for housing, we do think about the principles of the 3 Ps: to protect, preserve, and also produce. I'm sure you have heard of this thing called the subsidized housing inventory. So that is this fraction here. The numerator is how many subsidized housing units we currently have in Gloucester, and the denominator is our total housing units based on the 2020 decennial census. So Gloucester has about 8% subsidized housing. The state requires every municipality to be at 10%. So since we're not at 10%, Chapter 40B development can override our local zoning. Sometimes a comprehensive permit through Chapter 40B can be a great tool. At other times, when we don't have the option to say no or influence it the way that we would like to, it can run counter to our community goals, such as locating housing in a flood-prone or environmentally sensitive area. So that brings in the 4th P, this is a plan that takes a proactive approach to guiding development rather than reacting to what is proposed, so that the community can really drive the outcome here. This plan is being written to state standards for a housing production plan. The state requires that you have a housing needs assessment with the most current data available, that the city identify specific sites where it encourages mixed income and affordable housing, and then to have recommendations for policies and programs. So this process is being conducted where we're developing the plan with staff and a 15-member ad hoc advisory committee to oversee the production of the plan. And ultimately, it will need to be adopted by the planning board as well as city council. And if that happens, it will be sent to the state for state approval. But through the whole process, we've been engaging the community. And that advisory committee that I mentioned has been key to that. The committee has various levels of expertise in housing, but also can help us reach lots of different areas of the Gloucester community. So planning board member Sean Henry is on the committee and really serves as that connection between the planning board and this process. The process began last fall, and a lot of work has been done through the fall and the winter, hearing from the public as well as gathering data and taking a look at development constraints in Gloucester. And so we're progressing into the next phase of the process that is starting to look at the development of plan recommendations. So the community engagement that's occurred since the plan kicked off last fall really has taught us a lot. We took a meet where people where they're at approach. We had pop-up events and tabling at places where the Gloucester community is already going. And the reason we wanted to take this approach is you don't really always hear from the whole community during a public meeting because it's at a set time and it doesn't always work for everyone. So by going to where the people are, I think we heard from a lot of voices that don't typically get heard in a public meeting process. We also had several focus groups, and we had a survey that's been out since the beginning of the planning process and is still open and will close later this month. Some of the key themes, I'm sure you know, people really love to live in Gloucester. They like the walkability, like places like downtown, all the beautiful amenities that are here. But we heard, a desire for more family-sized housing as well as small housing types, which I think are related. We heard a desire to see more mixed-use development. People are really struggling to afford housing in Gloucester. People really feel like home ownership is out of reach. And we also learned a lot about some tension between small landlords and tenants and some things that we need to be paying attention to there. Here are the results of the survey from August to January 27th. We'll refresh this when the survey closes at the end of this month. But what we heard during that time period is similar to the themes that we saw in the slide I just showed you. Some of the other things we heard concerns about maybe there being too much development, the impacts on traffic as it relates to development, increasing property taxes, and again, that concern about will Gloucester be an affordable place for the next generation. In terms of preferences, people talked about the desire for both smaller homes and family-sized homes, more opportunities to rent, particular focus on not just housing for seniors, but housing that has supportive services as well, and a look at smaller housing types like studio apartments and even tiny homes. The top place that people said they'd like to live next to is near a grocery store, and then other popular destinations were near parks as well as near commercial amenities. So taking a look at the data and how that squares with what we heard from the public, we have a comprehensive housing needs assessment that looks at demographics of the community, the housing supply, and how affordable that housing is for the community. The big takeaways here is that housing is something that's needed across the board. We need a greater variety of housing types to meet a wide range of needs, but in particular, Gloucester is an aging community, so more downsizing options or more tools to help seniors age in their homes if that's what they desire to do. And also the affordability issue, which is not just affecting folks with less income, but also folks with a pretty good income that are important to our workforce. It's really something that hits home for everyone. So what is affordable? We typically think about that as a home is affordable if it costs no more than 30% of your income. That's a HUD metric. And so if you're spending more than 30% of your income on housing, it makes it difficult to pay for other necessities like food, healthcare, transportation, or you just have less income to contribute to the local economy or maybe invest in your own business. So in Gloucester, 40% of households are cost burdened, and half of those are severely cost burdened, meaning they're spending more than 50% of their income on housing. Deed restricted capital A affordable housing is required to cost no more than 30% of your income per a deed restriction, if we think about it in as simple terms as possible. We also think about housing that may be little a, attainable. So it's not required to be affordable, but it's in the marketplace and tends to be less expensive or easier to attain because of its size, age, or other factors. So to think about that, the median price of a single family home in Gloucester in 2025 was $715,000. So if you're going to put a 20% down payment on that and avoid private mortgage insurance, you need to have savings of $143,000. Now, if you're looking at a multifamily building, you're creating an opportunity for condominium home ownership, and the median price is lower. Therefore, the down payment that you would need is lower. But we also understand that a lot of people don't have these resources and savings. So if most of your stock is single family homes, there may not be an opportunity to live in Gloucester at all. So there's a need for more rental opportunities that provide access to the community. And if we're thinking about, say, a smaller rental like a studio, the median monthly rent for a studio in Gloucester is about $1,100. You'd also think about things like accessory dwelling units or small cottage homes. Because they are smaller, they will be easier to attain in the marketplace. Gloucester has 13,896 total year-round housing units. A little more than half are single family. There's a sizable percentage of 2 to 4 unit multifamily buildings at 32%, which is a good asset that Gloucester has. And then the remaining percentage are multifamily of 5 or more units. About 8% of housing units in Gloucester are used seasonally, which strains the year-round housing stock for residents and those that would like to call Gloucester home. And we're also dealing with a very old housing stock with 75% built before 1979, but half built before 1939. So that means a lot of these homes are going to require a lot of maintenance and upkeep and rehabilitation, and also maybe more subject to investors coming in and flipping homes for profit. So that's something that we really need to keep our eye on. One of the notable findings from the assessment was this clear mismatch between the size of housing units in Gloucester and the size of households. So the majority of homes at 80% have 2 or more bedrooms, but the average household size in Gloucester is about 2 people. and only 22% of Gloucester households have children. 42% of households are held by seniors. So this suggests smaller sized households, but homes that have multiple bedrooms. So there's a bit of a mismatch that we're seeing there. So in looking at income, the median household income in Gloucester is around 87,000. But when you look at the median household income of owner-occupied households versus renter-occupied households, there is a large disparity there. You can see owner-occupied households, the median household income is around 121,000, where for a renter-occupied household, it's as low as 43,000. The gap there has also increased significantly in the last decade. The other issue that Gloucester has that I'm sure you hear a lot about is that our local median household income at 87,000 is much lower than the area median income, which is the median household income for the metro area that includes Gloucester. That's at 160,000. So HUD uses the area median income to determine eligibility for capital A deed restricted affordable housing. So taking 80% AMI, a person with a pretty high income can qualify for affordable housing. This figure varies by household size, but for a single person household, you could make up to 92,000 and be eligible for affordable housing. So you can see it's a big issue, but the other thing that we're running into is a lot of folks in Gloucester, aren't being served by that 80% AMI and really need to see units coming in at 60% AMI and lower. The way that this works is depending on how a developer finances a development, they'll have units that are set aside for a range. So a range of 50 to 80% AMI, where if you're at that 92,000 in your income, then you qualify for that. And then other units are what I would say are more deeply affordable at a range from 30% to 50% AMI, and then 30% AMI or lower. And those units have to be financed in a way where income eligible households are able to access them. You see the 50 to 80% AMI range usually being created when we're looking at inclusionary zoning or other ways that affordable housing is required through 40B. And when you're trying to get more deeply affordable units, that typically has to come from a nonprofit affordable housing developer that has lots of different sources of subsidy to be able to finance the units so they're available to incomes in that range. Half of all households in Gloucester are eligible for deed restricted affordable housing. About 6,800 households in Gloucester are eligible, and for these households, there's about 1,100 housing units in the city. So for every 6 income eligible households, there is 1 affordable housing unit. So it is really a big issue in the city, and that is why we are taking a proactive approach to addressing it. So with that, I will pause for any questions or comments that you may have on the process or some of the key findings so far.
A lot of information you threw at us, but it's all good information. Take a second to digest. If not, we can move along. So if you want to continue your presentation, Alex.
So that's about all I have for you today. But if you want to learn more, we have a forum with the community to share these findings and collect input on the types of housing that the community would like to see encouraged here in Gloucester, and the kind of benefits that people want to see that housing bring. So we'll be having a community forum on Monday at the Sawyer Free Library from 6 to 8 p.m. It would be great to have you join us if you're free, and also to help spread the word to others that need to be engaged in the process.
Alex, this is Jane. Thank you. This is so much work, and thanks to the committee also so much work. I did have one observation, which is in the beginning of your presentation, you had talked about hearing back from the community that small family or young families were trying to find housing, and yet, according to your data, they're only 22% of total households, I think you said.
22% of households have children.
Sorry.
22% of households have children.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that was the surprising thing to me. I know we've been thinking about senior housing and small unit housing and small households and everything, but we do obviously want to keep our young families too, because that's where growth and, Gloucester comes from, is those young families.
I can make an observation there. I would also say that some of the outreach was done at places where families were convening. So
That makes
I think
sense.
you got a pretty good
Yeah.
sense of maybe the challenges that our families are facing, but it may not necessarily be the largest
That's a really good
housing
point.
need. Yep.
Yeah.
I think, you want to look at addressing housing needs for everyone. I mean, with an aging community, I think you want to pay special attention there. But the fact that seniors that may want to downsize don't have a lot of options to do so means that the larger homes are not being freed up for young families. So I think there's a relationship between those two things.
That's a really good point too. Thank you.
It strikes me as like a form of gridlock that you've got so much of an aging population in houses that sound like they're too big with multiple bedrooms, and yet they don't have a way to move to a smaller place and make room for all the other small scale housing as well.
I want to point out, though, that there is a safety valve, and that's an ADU. So the way a lot of people think about ADUs on single family houses is that they're the rental unit, over the garage or in the walkout basement, what have you. But it isn't inconceivable that for elders to put in ADU, they move into the ADU as the owner occupied, and they rent or sell, arrange to sell their house to another family so that there can be some turnover. I don't think we don't think about it much because ADUs here in Massachusetts are kind of a relatively new thing, but it seems to me that we should take that into consideration.
I think that's a great point, and this information and what we hear from the community is all being used to think about strategies and policies the city can put in place to address these issues. So one of those may be ways to support people who want to create ADUs. I think our zoning is pretty good there, but there are a lot of other barriers to creating ADUs, like financing and connecting into septic or sewer. So definitely something to think about.
Alex, what's the next step for your committee and you?
So we're going to be gathering input from the public really on locations and types of housing that the community wants to see encouraged at this forum. We'll take that and propose some recommendations based on that. And then we plan to have another forum in the summer to look at policy recommendations and get the community's input on that. We'll use all of the community input to bring forward a draft plan, and then we'll present that to the planning board and city council for review, and our goal is to get a plan adopted by June if everything stays on track.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
This is a lot of impressive work, and thanks for all your organization and data gathering.
Thank
I
you,
would
Alex.
just,
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
no problem. I would say I think it is a lot of amazing work, but I think my key takeaway from it, whether you're talking about senior housing or housing for young families, is it's essentially very similar to what we talked about 10 years ago, essentially at this point, about the need for a wider variety of housing that will answer a greater population's and needs for housing. Meaning, and I think to a great degree, that means smaller housing and more multifamily housing. I just actually, there was a great article, I think yesterday in the Washington Post about what another community is doing. And I sense that to Alex and Greg and Eric. And my hope is that when you guys get that, you can forward it on to the full planning board, because I think there's some great ideas that in that article that we can pursue once Compass has concluded. And actually, I should share with the Compass folks also, because I think there's some great ideas for discussion there. But I think there are creative ways we can approach our needs here.
This is Steve again. What Sean said about history raises a question for me. Did you see patterns or movements since the last housing production plan? What kind of changes have you seen since then?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to dig through in the housing needs assessments of over 40 pages. From what comes to mind, though, is that there has been an increase in the variety of housing types in Gloucester, and there has been a lot of progress made. Almost every recommendation, policy wise, not zoning wise, but policy wise and site selection wise from the last housing production plan has been implemented. And Gloucester's been recognized as a housing choice community by the state for employing many best practices when it comes to housing. I think the city's toolkit has expanded significantly. You could look at the growth of the Affordable Housing Trust. You could look at the zoning around accessory dwelling units that we were just talking about. So there's been a lot of progress. In terms of trends, I do see that there is, one of those things I called out was the disparity between homeowner and renter income. In addition to that, the amount of households that are earning over 125,000 in Gloucester has increased. So we're seeing some changes there in terms of income and demographics. And I'm sure there are other things that we can pull from that large assessment, but I'd really encourage you to look in there and see if anything strikes you that you think we should really focus on when it comes to proposing recommendations.
I think to Steve's point, as somebody who sat on that housing production plan 10 years ago and is now part of the Housing Compass project now, I think many of the answers that, or many of the potential solutions that we are seeing now are actually some of the same solutions we saw earlier that unfortunately, when we made those recommendations as formal ordinance changes 5 years ago at this point, were defeated. So I think ultimately we'll have to do a far better job in the coming couple of years to uh, pass some of those solutions than we did the last time, because I think the answers to a great degree are largely the same, although there are actually some even more creative solutions that are a little more not aggressive, but a little more progressive than we had passed before, than we had hoped for before. So I think that there's not been a tremendous change in um, the potential solutions. We're pointed back to the same answers that we knew 10 years ago.
I think I hear where you're coming from on that, Sean. And I think that is mostly true when we're talking about zoning. Just the nature of zoning is a tough thing. But this plan doesn't just propose zoning recommendations. It will look at programs and other policies to again protect the folks who are living in Gloucester, preserve housing that is meeting community needs, all those different areas. There's a lot the city can do outside of just zoning, and I certainly recognize the challenge that the city's faced in making zoning changes.
Yeah, no, and I don't mean to demean all the additional work and additional recommendations coming out of this project. I think in terms of bringing it back to a focus on zoning, that which we're responsible for promoting, that the the zoning solutions haven't changed that much, although there are some additional zoning solutions that are a bit more creative that we might try to implement, but largely in terms of zoning, the answers haven't really changed too much in the past 10 years.
Alex, can I ask you to go back to the a couple of slides that demonstrated the earnings gap?
Oh.
No, there, go back, go to the right, two more. Go up, yeah, forward. So I'm looking at not that one, but the next slide. And then one more. So is there a slide after this one that has, okay. So this is the one that caught my eye. So, I mean, I graduated college a few years ago, but it's crazy to me to think that you'd be eligible for affordable housing making $92,000 a year, right? And so, I mean, we as a community have dealt with reducing the AMI thresholds as we've depicted here. But I think there's obviously a much deeper concern on the community's earning ability, right? And it's not, you can't really address it in zoning, but that's really where the concern lies, right? I mean,
Yeah, I think that's a great point. This is something that really isn't fixed by zoning. It's a financing issue. It's how do you fill a funding gap to bring in more units that are going to be more accessible to household incomes in Gloucester. So you're looking at a lot of different areas um, that really don't have a lot to do with zoning, although that is also important.
and then there's a story in the paper today saying that there's 1,500 people in the Gloucester Housing Authority, on a list, right? 1,500 people, right? So I think the last time we did our housing assessment needs or housing production plan, that number was like 750. So more than doubled, right, in 8 years, right? So it's not going in the right direction, but I'm sure we could talk about this all night. So if there's no more further questions, at this point, we'll look forward to the meeting next week and go from there. Sean, anything last before we let Alex go?
All good. Thank you.
All righty. Thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you.
That was terrific. Okay, so next under the agenda this evening is in accordance with GZO Section 5.7, the major project, Planning Board to review a major project special permit application for a 40-unit mixed-use project submitted by Gloucester, Maine LLC, located at 150 Main Street, Assessors Map 8 in Lot 64.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Deborah Ellison, Ellison Law Office, 470 Washington Street, Gloucester. We'd like to share our screen.
Rick, I just want to, before the presentation starts, I want to say that I am recusing myself from this hearing and will be muted throughout the presentation.
Thank you, Sean. So noted. Floor is yours, Attorney Ellison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant and owner of this property is a Gloucester, Maine LLC, and Chris Boyce is here tonight on behalf of the LLC. The architect is Util, Michael LeBlanc, and Catherine Packenham Bilgan are here tonight. We also have our consultants with regard to traffic, landscape, and civil that will present tonight. And I believe the traffic and landscape are on Zoom. The property is located at 150 Main Street, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with the building.
Do you have a site plan? A street plan, just so that we know exactly where it is. I don't recognize the building specific.
The building is the former Santander Bank building,
Okay,
which is right next to Bank Gloucester.
gotcha. Thank you.
So tonight, what we'd like to do is give you a legal summary of the requested relief, a brief overview of the project, the architect's presentation with regard to the design. We'll have presentations from traffic, landscape, and civil engineer, and then I'll give you a legal summary of the relief that we're looking for. This is the site plan. And the applicant is converting the building presently permitted for a bank and seeking to convert it to a mixed residential and commercial space. The bank has not been operational at this location for several years, leaving a hole in the fabric of both Main Street and Middle Street. The property sits in both the CD and the CCD district. The Main Street side of the project is in the CD district. CB district, and the Middle Street side is in the CCD district. Approximately half of the lot is in each district. The Middle Street portion of the lot also sits in the historic district. The Main Street portion does not. As you may know, commercial uses in the CB and CCD district have zero front, rear, and side yard setback requirements and may be constructed lot line to lot line and directly abutting the street. The bank was constructed that way. Residential projects, however, do have setbacks with a multiplier based on height, hence the need for variances that were received from the ZBA. The applicant has received all relief that it needs other than from the City Council. On January 8th, 2026, the Zoning Board of Appeals, by unanimous vote, granted variances for lot width, front yards, side yards, portion of a parking aisle width, and front yard vegetative cover on Main Street. Despite the complexities of this site, the project required only 5 variances. If this were a commercial use, none of those variances would have been required. On January 13th, 2026, the Historic District Commission, also by unanimous vote, granted a certificate of appropriateness with a single design-related condition that has been met and incorporated into the plans that were filed with the City Council. The applicant is seeking a favorable recommendation from the Planning Board for the major project special permit. The special permit under GZO 5.71. The project will have 61 bedrooms. We're also seeking additional special permits from the City Council under 2.3.18 for multifamily with 40 units. Special permit under 3.2.2 footnote A to reduce lot area and open space dwelling unit, and under 3.1.6B for building over 35 feet. The project has been thoughtfully designed to fit into two distinct neighborhoods that it abuts, Main Street and Middle Street. Great consideration has been given to its residential and commercial abutters. The applicant has reached out directly to the residential abutters, left a letter and contact information at their homes, has met with several of those abutters to go over the plans and answer their questions, and has also met with Bank Gloucester, which is the business that directly abuts the project. They will continue to maintain contact with the abutters and address any concerns as they arise. Now I'll turn the mic over to Chris Boyce, who's the owner's representative, to give you some additional information.
Thank you, Deb. Chris Boyce, for the record, 221 Woodside Ave in Winthrop. So good evening. We've, as Deb said, we've gone through the ZBA Historic Commission, had a presentation with Planning and Development, and I think we're excited for this step to present here tonight. I'm a representative of Fox Creek Capital. We're the owners of Gloucester, Maine, LLC. It's a family-owned development company, investment and development company in the North Shore. We're based out of Ipswich. Our philosophy is pretty simple, and I think you'll see some notable design gestures this evening that speak to that. So we invest with intention in the communities that we're a part of. We design with care. Part of the reason we brought UTEAL to the table as a partner in Gloucester and past planning projects, and a partner of ours here. And we build projects that strengthen the communities they're a part of. You'll see some decisions that are made tonight that reflect who we are. I mean, we're long-term owners and managers. The goal of this project is to be a long-term neighbor. Part of the reason for the outreach to all the neighbors is we will be the contacts that they reach out to for years to come. We focus on these projects and we focus on the neighborhoods that they can create and that they contribute to. A lot of that is what guided us towards 150 Main Street. We saw the vacant bank and the void in the neighborhood character and a real opportunity to strengthen Main Street, create double-sided retail, bring housing to this neighborhood. Today, it's a vacant bank building surrounded by asphalt parking at the rear. We saw it as a great opportunity to bring more vibrancy to this end of Main Street. So a couple of notes before I turn over to our consultants about what the project does. In total, it's 40 units, approximately 2 distinct 20-unit residential buildings over a hidden parking podium with retail facing Main Street. So 2 appropriately scaled smaller buildings, each is very distinct character. You'll see that reflected in UTEAL's presentation. This adds housing in an area that the city's comprehensive plan sought housing. It adds foot traffic and people to an area of the city that desires that type of vibrancy. Of the 220-unit buildings, kind of relevant after Alex's presentation early, 10% of those will be inclusionary units at 60% AMI. It's located on Main Street, so the real goal here is we're bringing year-round residents to this end of Main Street. It's within walking distance of jobs, services, retail, and only 3/8 of a mile from the commuter rail, which I think is very important for the future neighbors that will live here. And it adds new, vibrant retail to an end of Main Street that really could use the footfall. That retail space is 3,500 square feet. So we're targeting not more than 2 retailers, but could be 1 retailer in that location. The project itself, as you'll see through the presentation, creates a mid-block green space. So it doesn't just bring housing and retail and concealed parking, but it also is able, in a very condensed site, to bring green space and tree canopy. The hidden parking we find is a real asset. Hidden parking allows us to close a curb cut on Middle Street. That brings more pedestrian flow, safer pedestrian flow on all edges of the site, and improves the pedestrian connections throughout the area, both Middle and Main Street. So before I turn it over, there's a couple of areas that in every presentation, any area of new growth, any area of development, we get a lot of the same questions. All of the abutters that we've met with have had some of the same concerns. Traffic being one. Bowman is our traffic engineer. They're on the call virtually today. They'll walk you through traffic with a little more detail than I can offer, but that's an area of concern that I feel that we've addressed with the project. And the other is kind of economic growth. So what is the economic impact of a project like this for Gloucester? We've engaged RKG Associates to do an economic impact and fiscal impact study. RKG, I think you're familiar with. As a board and as a city, their work to evaluate municipal revenues, municipal service costs, economic activity generated by the project. They did a thorough study for us. So the property taxes, I mean, we'll leave it at a high level. I'm sure a lot you could read in their report. We'll bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in new property tax revenue. This is a rental housing project. This is not condos. There's several reasons for that we'll discuss, but that rental income, we feel from a tax-based perspective, offers a stable, reliable income base for the city. We as owners are responsible for that, and that's part of our commitment with the city, and it's a more stable income base. With 40 households that now live downtown, that represents a meaningful spending in the local economy. Part of the allure is the location. It's an amenity-rich, highly amenitized site. A lot of these new residents can come out the front door and be a part of the double-sided retail that exists on Main Street. Their spending dollars become part of the community. As you'll see probably in the report, on average, the tenants we're targeting usually spend $15,000 to $25,000 annually on retail and dining. Pretty significant numbers. So if only a portion of that income is spent, that represents still hundreds of thousands of new dollars being spent in the local economy. As renters, and as renters in a downtown urban core, we find that these are often people that want to walk to shops, not drive to them. They want to walk to restaurants, meet each other for coffee. Those dollars are spent at their doorstep, not in other cities. It's pretty impactful. Job creation is not just the permanent jobs that'll be a part of the property management that's on site, the retail space that's at the base, and the construction jobs that'll exist over the 2 years of the construction process. Alex touched on it a little bit in his presentation, so I don't want to belabor it, but we found that rental housing is important. Part of the reason we're targeting rental housing for this project here. Rental housing creates an option where people that are often seeking rental housing are looking for options that are close to the place that they work. That's why they're looking for rental housing in that community and neighborhood. So we're really now offering a place that they can work nearby. They rely on walkable services. They participate in the daily economic life downtown. They're walking to work. So it helps job creation in other locations, not just our site. And it really kind of creates a live, walk, play environment in the downtown Gloucester area. It's important to note what this project changes, which is today a vacant site surrounded largely by asphalt, and replaces it with housing, storefront businesses, green space, concealed parking, and year-round residents. So before I turn over to Michael here, from UTIL, who'll walk you through the design, which we're really excited to show you, it's important that this project isn't just housing. You know, I think housing, we've learned from the past presentations, is important in downtown Gloucester. But this is an investment in the long-term vitality of downtown. Bringing housing here helps all of Gloucester. In our view, downtown housing, rental housing is economic infrastructure in meaningful ways. So with that, I'll turn over to Michael LeBlanc from UTIL to walk through the design.
All right, thank you, Chris. A little taller than you. Great. All right. Michael LeBlanc, principal at UTIL Architecture and Planning, 115 Kingston Street in Boston. So at the risk of repeating some of what Deb and Chris have talked about, they both described the kind of impulses and vision of the project really, really well. I'll do my best to focus on how that vision translated into design decisions and how we're really approaching the site. But I'll say, as they both did, the current site is an underutilized vacant building and parking lot. It certainly seems to be a site that's in need of infill. Just some of the logistics around, we have Gloucester Bank to our east, 75 Middle and 6 Hancock Street to our west. We have a coffee shop to our west on Main Street itself. There's about 15 feet of grade change from the Main Street part of the site up to the Middle Street part of the site. You'll see that creates both cost and construction challenges for us, but also some opportunities as well. The shape of the site also creates some challenges. Because the site stretches from Main Street all the way back to Middle, we felt it was really important to look at both sides of the project and really be as responsive as we can be to both of those unique contexts, which they sort of have their own unique flavor to them. So first looking at Middle Street. Middle Street's home to a range of scales and uses, including commercial, civic, and residential uses. We've taken an approach that we're most interested in the residential scale, the materiality seen throughout that district, characterized by pitched roofs, wood clapboards, wood shingles, that kind of really, great textured residential quality. Main Street is typically characterized by active ground floor uses, which are built right up to the property lines, creating well-defined pedestrian experience at the sidewalk. Over the storefronts, typically there's 1, 2, and sometimes 3 additional stories of uses that range from commercial to residential. It's the very definition of a pedestrian-friendly, vibrant, mixed-use street. Main Street is really a real gem. We looked at some of the uses in downtown, and carefully kind of looked at how they're distributed along Main Street. The first thing we really realized is that it's characterized by a range of different point uses, service uses, food and beverage, retail, destination uses that are pretty amazing series of options that you have on Main Street. We also noticed that our particular part of Main Street is a little bit of a missing tooth in that vibrancy and that fabric. And so what we're proposing is to bring uses to that site, which are going to be in keeping with what you see along Main Street. So we also looked at the site in terms of trying to figure out what's an appropriate massing or scale for our buildings. And as we did that, we took a look at all of the other existing downtown buildings at all sizes, but we're really kind of pointing out here for scale comparison, all of those buildings that are on the site that reach to 40 feet or over and have a sort of larger, bulk to them to begin with. What we found out pretty quickly is that, there is a really great variety that defines the downtown Gloucester scale, and you can see how that is part of the vibrancy of downtown. If you look at the trace over photograph on the right, you can see the kind of fluctuating cornice lines and all that up and down Main Street, which we think adds character, vibrancy, and beauty and texture to the downtown. That's a historic photo, of course. Today we have more street trees here, which is a great improvement, replacing all of the trolley lines and wires above, which had kind of a similar effect of creating a scaled ceiling over the street, but we like the trees better than the trolley lines. So taking a quick look at the existing site plan, the site stretches again from Main to Middle, creating unique challenges such as meaningful grade changes. We straddle a historic district boundary, which we've been to this historic commission and had a very good meeting with them. The overall building bulk and the opportunities for mid-block light and air conditions are all part of the things that we had to start thinking about for the overall site. So after observing this unique condition between both Main and Middle in the unconventional shape of the site, we departed from the early massing options that contemplated a larger, single, bulkier building with a larger floor plate. And instead, we pursued a scheme that proposes 2 smaller buildings of about 20 units each, which are more thoughtfully scaled to their specific location on the site and open up the mid-block to light, air, and greenery. Main Street and Mill Street are exclusively pedestrian access as it's being proposed, with residential entrances at both streets and retail access at Main Street. Vehicle access is currently proposed from Hancock Street, This is one of the opportunities I was talking about that allows us to slip our parking underneath the Middle Street building so that it's essentially hidden from main pedestrian parts of the downtown area. This is right in line with one of your own guidelines here in Gloucester of not trying not to surround the buildings with a sea of asphalt. At both Main and Middle Street, our facades align with the adjacent buildings, maintaining consistent streetscapes reflective of the surrounding neighborhood. So I'll just take you through this quick series of massing diagrams, which contemplate an as-of-right project, as it could be on the site. And as we started to think about it, we first made the obvious move of pushing the Main Street facade out to Main Street to align with the neighboring buildings, which seems like a fairly simple and consistent way to approach that. We then started thinking about the mid-block condition and started to think about the size of the building and are there ways to bring light, air, and greenery into the middle of the block? So to do that, we pulled out that middle part of the building and redistributed it to other parts of the building that seemed to make more sense. We then looked at the condition between the Middle Street and Hancock Street structures behind us and decided to pull back much further from their property line than we would otherwise have needed to. And again, take that, that part of the building and redistribute it to more appropriate places. We then looked at the front of the project, and this was after a series of back and forth discussions we had with folks at the city, neighbors, you know, just folks in general, sometimes proactively thinking about ways we can make the project better, and began to look at how we can step back the building on Main Street so that its perception from grade is really much more consistent with what you see there. So turning to a section through the site, on the left-hand side of this section, you can see Middle Street, how our building scales to that. You can see how as our ground floor or our bottom floor, which is at Middle Street below grade parking, then daylights out to Main Street as active ground floor uses, and where we slip our parking into the building underneath the Middle Street structure. So this again is an initial pass at massing on Main Street that we looked at. Feedback was, well, it still feels a little bit tall, even though we felt like it was fairly close scale and in keeping to what was out there. But we took another stab at it and decided to push back the floors above the third floor in order to really set back light and air opportunities for Main Street, as well as just providing a building which feels of a much better scale. So I'm going to start to go through some of the renderings from grade, which I hope will illuminate the sort of, you know, end result of a lot of these decisions. So this is looking from across Hancock Street to the front facade of the building. I'm sorry, Main Street. Thanks, Chris. Where you can see that the step backs really begin to diminish the impact of the upper stories on Main Street itself, where the cadence of the windows, the brick detailing, the storefronts, which are transparent and active, are in keeping with a lot of the structures along Main Street. This is the view of it looking from, pardon me, a view of it looking from Main Street, also a little bit to the west. Then again, looking towards it from a little bit of the east. You can see where the site itself begins to step up as you go from Main Street to the north towards Middle Street, and the massing tends to step up with that grade change. Looking at the Middle Street facades and massing, you know, we took, you know, close attention to look at the buildings next adjacent to us. Some of the buildings are larger along Middle Street, but we were really looking at some of the great examples that are closer to our project. You know, so the building right on the corner of Hancock and Middle, which is a beautiful building. Right across the street from us, another kind of very beautiful colonial era building, and doing our best to create materiality, detailing, and scaling that meets those. Now, this looks like two different structures back here. It's really not. Here's the quick explanation of that. We set back a kind of reveal between the two massings so that as one passes by this project in a vehicle or on foot, that it generally reads as two smaller scale buildings. View of this looking from the northeast. And I will say the Historic Commission was quite happy with these design moves as they relate to the historic district. Looking from the northwest. This just coming a little bit more frontal and showing the generous landscape between our building and the neighboring residential buildings. This is a view from Hancock Street looking into that mid-block garden, which shows the approximate location of the historic boundary and how the two buildings that we're proposing address those two different contexts pretty differently. Wanted to point out that, we have done extensive shade studies, and what we've been finding is that with existing shadows on site and the shadows that would be created by an as-of-right building and an as-of-right proximity to lot lines, that we're really seeing very little uptick in the amount of shade and shadow that we're producing with this proposed building. And in particular, looking at some of the morning time daylight, where the decision to pull out the massing in the middle of the block and create a mid-block garden allows for a lot more light and air to move through the mid-block. So this is my last slide, and then we'll hand it off to traffic. But I just wanted, there's a couple things I wanted to point out here. How we imagine vehicle traffic coming in and off of Hancock Street. First I'll say the small tab of surface parking lot, which is at the west end or page south on this particular drawing, is currently utilized as a parking lot, a surface parking lot. So it's for all intents and purposes, its use will remain the same. We have access to our garage, which is again below the Middle Street building. In there's approximately 34 spaces inside, and I think another 6 outside, if I'm getting that math correct, for a total of 40 spaces, giving us a 1-to-1 ratio. A couple of areas that we sought some relief for relative for the parking was our drive aisle does pinch down a little bit to about 21 feet rather than 24 feet, directly between the elevator area and the parking just across the drive aisle there. We don't feel that is a significant problem from a dimensional standpoint. We've seen projects locally approved with much tighter drive aisles behind parking, so we feel like the maneuverability works quite well. We're also looking at a single lane of access and ingress, or ingress and egress to the parking area. So these are, again, this is a privately managed garage. We don't really anticipate a ton of cars coming and going here. We're looking at specifying a garage door, which will be very quiet so as not to disturb the neighbors when it operates, or our own tenants. And this is, not 100% dimensionally, as of right, but we feel it's very workable, and we certainly have done similar conditions to this in lots of places. So I'm going to hand it off to our traffic consultants.
I think we might have somebody raise his hand to get in. Is that possible? Stephen?
Yep.
It is. Are you able to see this, Steve?
Okay, so she is allowed as a panelist and should be able to speak. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for allowing me to join via Zoom. My name is Steven Saragusa. I am with Bowman Consulting. We performed a trip generation memorandum for this site back in February of this year. And I just will go through kind of briefly what that entailed and kind of our findings here. So just to kind of update everybody on all of this. So the first thing is for the trip generation. So the Institute of Transportation Engineers, ITE, published a trip generation manual, which is where we got our average rates from. And we did it for multifamily housing and for also a high turnover sit down restaurant, which is the most likely use of the commercial space. And so we combined those two land use codes and the rates for each of those combined with the 40 residential units and that 3,500 square feet of commercial space. And then based on those rates, we kind of got an estimated peak hour trips generated for the entire site. And we did it for the weekday morning, weekday afternoon, and the Saturday midday when the commercial restaurant space would likely be the highest. And what we found was an estimated 57 trips are estimated during the weekday morning peak hour, 59 trips during the weekday afternoon peak hour, and 58 trips during the Saturday midday peak hour. And I want to make note that we did not take credit for the previous use of the site, which I understand has been closed down for a bit, but there were 12,000 square feet of bank and ancillary office space there. And using the same ITE trip generation manual and the rates for a bank and office space in the weekday afternoon peak hour, that bank and office space estimated to have generated about 146 trips to and from. So as you can see, it'd be quite the reduction of the weekday afternoon trips there. And we also did not take credit for any non-vehicle trips to and from the site. We're about 0.4 miles from the Gloucester commuter rail station, and there is really good bicycle and pedestrian connectivity throughout that downtown area along Main Street. And it is anticipated that a lot of the commercial trips would be non-vehicular sites, people who will park at some ancillary downtown parking lots and then walk to the site. And similar idea with the residential units. A lot of those residents either will walk through the downtown area to get to what they need or commute via walking to their jobs or public transit or telecommuting to work, which we know has kind of boomed over the last few years with working from home. And so we think that it'll benefit from the downtown nature of the site with the walking, biking, and public transit use. And we don't believe it'll have, we believe it'll have a negligible impact on the surrounding vehicular traffic network. And the last thing I want to kind of just bring up is the distribution of trips between the existing or the previous use, which was a bank, and the residential and commercial use. So the residential especially is definitely geared towards mostly towards the morning and afternoon peak hours where people are leaving for work in the morning and coming home from work in the afternoon. Rather than a bank has definitely more of a distribution throughout the entire day. So it's definitely more defined in those peak hours. So there's not going to be trips coming and going, specifically along Hancock Street for the residential units. That is my brief overview of the traffic and trip generation. I will pass it off to Will from Offshoot for the landscape, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions as they come up.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, Steve. My name is Will Smith. I'm a senior associate at Offshoots. We're the landscape architects for the project. And I'm just going to walk you through quickly some of, the main layout of the project. Going off of Michael's presentation, we are going in and have worked with UTL and Fox Creek and everyone else on the team to kind of come up with a thoughtful landscape strategy that fits well into the existing condition, both the Middle Street historic side of the project as well as the more active Main Street side of the project. I think a key comment to kind of start with is like kind of one of the driving themes of this project. That was very much an idea that Fox Creek has had since the very beginning was creating these gardens of respite. So we're trying to create these green spaces within the urban context that are both engaging and stimulating, but also calming and natural, and also relate to the just the context of Gloucester in general. We've located most of the gathering areas in the central courtyard area between the two proposed buildings, as well as on the planned north side, so on the bank side, and tried to keep the gathering areas away from the Hancock Street side of the project that where we have existing residential abutters. Um, and on the Hancock Street side, it's worth noting that, we've worked closely with the neighbor. Chris has met with all of them extensively, and we're doing all we can from a landscape perspective to provide screening through just lush vegetation, trees, and other screening opportunities to buffer the project from their buildings and just provide a little bit of space to make the experience as good for them as possible. Along Middle Street, the design reflects the historic character of the district. Our material choices are fairly simple. We have, a large granite curb that mimics kind of what's happening on the other side of the street. We're providing, a seating area along Middle Street to kind of engage the urban condition. And then the planting typology there is, it's going to be kind of a wispy native grass with some shrubs, as well as some smaller trees in the area that you see that are in the brighter green along Middle Street. And then on the two edges, we planted one large oak tree or one large shade tree on the bank side, and then two larger shade trees next to the abutter on the Hancock Street side to try to provide a little shade along Middle Street. The Middle Street has a lot of great characteristics in terms of architecture and urban design, but the street tree planting could be improved, and so we're trying to add our part to that. So that area that's in yellow, again, I'm just going to reiterate, along the abutter's edge. We're working really hard with the entire design team as well as the abutters to create just a lush planting that you saw in Michael's renderings. The central courtyard itself is, again, we'll show you some renderings in the next slide, but it's basically just a lush. In fact, Mike, can you go ahead and advance one slide? So this is the central courtyard. As you can see, we have some raised planters with some simple pavers. The material choices are it's minimal, and that was intentional. Again, trying to reiterate this calming, lush garden experience. And then you can see we've worked really hard to get enough height in our soil volume so that we can actually have trees in this area, which will, they're all deciduous. So during the summer, they're going to provide the shade you need. During the winter hours, when the days are shorter, they're going to let light in. And so we're trying to find a nice balance to create that environment. The color palettes for most of these areas, can you advance to the next slide? Let's talk about materials. So this just reiterates the material choices and shows you a little bit what we're thinking in terms of pavers and planters, trying to use natural materials as much as possible. So when we can, we're going to bring in stone and wood. And again, that's just driven by the local North Shore landscape that I think we all love and are trying to pull design inspiration from. Next slide, please. This is starting to just talk about the planting character. And so you see the property across the street, while ours will be a little bit different. It will have, some similar themes. It's going to rely fairly heavily on ferns, greens, and whites. There, it's a little bit of a shady condition because we're in an urban context, but I think it can still be quite beautiful. Next slide, please. And I think a lot of our color will come from our tree choices. So we're, choosing, for the most part, native species, but at Offshoots, we're really big on native species, but we're also very aware of, or we aim to provide meaningful plantings that provide not only aesthetic visual stimuli for the users, but also are contributing to the local ecology and providing pollinators habitats, and also just in adding to the local seed bank, the horticultural seed bank. Next slide, please. And this is our last slide, which is just again showing kind of the palette that we're looking at. So just because we can't maybe have like really bright tulips because of the certain conditions we're working in, it's going to be lush. We'll have a lot of ferns, and again, whites and greens. And with that, that is my last slide, and I will pass it off to, I believe, Chris, our civil engineer.
Thanks, Will.
Good evening. My name is Jay Polakowitz with Hancock Associates. We're the civil engineers and land surveyors on the project. So my first slide here is the existing conditions plan that we prepared. I just want to point out a few things. So the first is just the existing building over here along Main Street. Hancock Street is down here, while Middle Street is over here. The majority of the pedestrian access to the existing building comes from Main Street, while vehicular access comes from two curb cuts, one on Middle Street and one on Hancock Street. The parking lot takes up about 2/3 of the site, while the building takes up about 1/3 of it. The utilities from the existing structure are mostly in Main Street. This is our grading and drainage plan, but it gives a good idea of the site as a whole. So we are proposing a subsurface infiltration chamber system. This will collect runoff from the proposed roofs of the two structures, as well as that patio area between them, and a majority of the exterior parking. So this chamber system will take that stormwater, promote infiltration and recharge. It meets the stormwater standards, and will cut down on peak rates and volume of runoff. We are also removing the curb cut along Middle Street, and so that way the sidewalk in that area will go straight across and will allow for 2 parking spaces within the street. So this is our utility plan. As I mentioned before, utilities to the existing building are in Main Street. Is our current proposal to remove those. I think I went backwards, sorry. So the utilities are going to Main Street in the existing building. It's our proposal. There we go. And that we are moving all the utilities to Hancock Street. We still need to confirm that with the DPW, but that is our preference, as it'll reduce traffic impacts during construction. As you can see, again, our subsurface chamber system, as well as the transformer that is required for this project. And I think that's about it for civil.
Before I turn over to Deb, I think it's just worth noting, Michael had mentioned earlier in his presentation, our adoration of the street trees and the canopy that exists on Main Street. There are 2 street trees on Main Street that exist today, and those will be protected during construction. The goal is to keep those street trees. We'll be working with an arborist, make sure they're protected and cared for.
So what you're tasked with doing is to recommend to the city council this project, and you, in doing that, looking at the special permit criteria under 1.8.3 and also the major project criteria. So I'll briefly go through those for the record. Under 1.8.3, this project, I would suggest, is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance, and that it will not adversely affect the neighborhoods, the zoning district, or the city as to outweigh the beneficial effects. Looking at social, economic, and community needs, those will be served by the proposed use. It advances the city's stated goals for downtown revitalization and housing production, contributes to the vitality and walkability of downtown, and also well suited to new year-round residential units. Replacing the parking lot is in harmony with the historic district in the neighborhood on Middle Street, and it has strong community support with the unanimous votes from ZBA and the Historic District Commission. And again, 4 of the on-site units will be 60% area median income. Bowman Consulting Group has done a traffic assessment, and there's a substantial reduction in peak hour traffic, and meets the parking requirements under the GZO, and removal of the existing curb cut on Middle Street creates a continuous pedestrian frontage and removes vehicular access. Also, the housing production plan has found that Gloucester's downtown is a walker's paradise. It's 3/8 of a mile from the commuter rail station. With regard to the adequacy of utilities, they will be updated as necessary, and all the necessary utilities are available, as you've heard from the civil engineer. With regard to neighborhood character and social structure, Main Street is consistent with downtown, and there will be new green space and tree canopy mid-block. Middle Street has generous setbacks and also a very inviting pedestrian experience. We have eliminated the visible parking. The height of the building is consistent with other buildings on Middle Street and Main Street, and they fit comfortably within the existing streetscapes. This is a thoughtful infill development. The qualities of the natural environment will be greatly improved. The street side green space and mid-block garden and the parking below grade will significantly add to this site. The site is not within a protected resource area or flood zone, and the current site has minimal green space and is mostly impervious. The redevelopment of this site represents a more productive and appropriate use of the site. You heard from Chris about the potential fiscal impact. New residential and commercial tax revenue will support surrounding property values, and the project advances the highest and best use of the site, delivering tangible benefits to the city. It is not within any FEMA flood zones, and it is we're in an area projected to be within sea level rise. With regard to the major project, there are certain guidelines the City Council needs to look at. With regard to access, all vehicular access is off of Hancock Street. Access from Main Street and Middle Street will be pedestrian only, and the proposed access is more than adequate to serve the residential and commercial uses. The site plan includes everything that is on the list under C of 5.7.5. The site plan shows the required access points, drainage, utilities serving the buildings. Majority of the parking is screened and below grade. Parking lighting will be designed to avoid glare to adjoining properties, and there is a robust landscape plan. Also, the project avoids major topographical alterations to the extent that it's practicable. So, okay, we're almost done. All other requirements of the zoning ordinance will also.
I have a charger if you need one.
Okay, very good. All requirements of the GZO will be met, and all applicable building codes will be satisfied throughout the project and upon completion of the project. Multifamily residential uses in a non-residential district. This CB and CCD districts are not specifically residential, but they do allow residential development with special permits. And therefore, the uses that are being proposed are consistent with both. There's a balanced mixed-use development, strengthens both residential and commercial functions of downtown. The city has identified this area as appropriate for higher density residential development. Ground floor retail and restaurant will replace a vacant building. Already contains a number of mixed-use buildings and residential use in these districts, and the CB and CCD uses will not be noxious to the residential use because the uses are predominantly retail, service establishment, and restaurants that will be convenient amenities for the residents projects of the project. And Middle Street is entirely consistent with the residences. The project's height, massing, and setbacks are well calibrated to their surroundings and reinforce its established scale and character of the neighborhoods that it abuts. The design is intentionally grounded in its context, strengthening the streetscape and public realm through new green space, pedestrian-oriented uses, and thoughtful architectural detailing. By reactivating a long vacant site with a high-quality mixed-use development, the project delivers meaningful community benefits while supporting the economic vitality necessary for long-term success. It advances the city's planning goals, complements the architectural character of downtown Gloucester, and contributes to a more active, walkable, and resilient neighborhood. The project represents a clear and lasting improvement to the site and its surroundings, and we request that you recommend that the City Council grant the major project permit. We're happy to answer any questions about any aspect of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Ellison. Any questions brimming at this point?
I had a couple of questions.
What, Steve?
I do as well.
And just to comment first, it seems incredibly well thought out project. Couple things that occurred to me. The green space between the buildings, some of the renderings with the amenities like chairs and things led me to assume that it's just available to the residents. Is that true?
That is true. It's elevated. It's above the parking, so it's kind of a green roof structure. There's an interior amenity space that opens up into that central courtyard, but it's an amenity for the building and for the building residents. Middle Street, with this 20-foot setbacks and the garden, we have a small hardscape area. Also, it's a green roof over parking. The hardscape has a public bench, a little area of respite. That is public facing, but the central courtyard is not.
For that clarification. One other question is, do you plan to implement any restrictions on short-term rentals for your lessors above the regulations of the city?
We haven't fully developed a management plan for the building yet, but we can simply say yes. The goal is to build a community within the community, right? Each of these is 2 20-unit buildings. They have that central space where they can gather. The goal is not to have a lot of transient use within the building itself. So we're looking for annual rentals. There'd be a restriction on subletting by owner.
And the last thought is, do you have any plans for bicycle storage in your garage area?
We do. We plan to implement a bike rack system over the front or the nose of the cars. We don't have other specific dedicated bike rooms or spaces for that, but we feel like we can achieve somewhere between 25 and 30 places to store bikes, in the garage area.
Great, thank you.
What's the mix of the size of the units? Are they 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom?
I do. I'll round these numbers a little bit for you, but we're just over 52% 2 beds. 40% of the units are 1 beds, and then around 7.5%, 8% are going to be studios. So this is predominantly 2 beds. Some of the 1 beds are 1+ dens, which would be an office, a work from home office space. Obviously, we've seen a prevalence of work from home. So some of the 2 beds have a den, some of the 1 beds have a den, but it's a 2-bed predominant building.
Okay. And along with Steve's question, so that central kind of open space area, is there a path from Middle Street that goes to that for residents? Looked like there was on one side, on the east side of the building. Can you access that from
You technically can. Part of that path, the real intent is there's a path down to Hancock. That's really emergency egress is the goal of that, but it is a pathway. There's also a path along the Gloucester Bank side that would run out to Middle Street. So there is access to that space. Those are safety and egress pathways. We really anticipate that it's the central corridor of a double-loaded corridor that most people will access that amenity space from, but the opportunity exists.
And the exterior of the building on Middle Street, is that going to be wood clapper? What's it going to be?
I'll let Michael handle it, but we had a extensive conversation at the Historic District Commission. our intent as developers generally, but especially for this project and in particular for Middle Street is all real materials. That's real wood. Those are real materials on that side, but I'll let Michael kind of outline more.
Yeah, I mean, I can't expand too much on that. Wood clapboards, wood shingles. We'll have wood windows, which will be aluminum clad, just for the upkeep of maintenance and all of that. But yeah, that is the intention. That real wood, not simulated products.
And then on the Main Street side, it's brick.
It is brick on the lower floors, and then it shifts to a metal panel system.
That's on the step back.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple questions. One of the questions I prepared in advance was what was going to happen to the existing street trees. So thank you for addressing that. I really appreciate that. Also, could you just comment on the height again? I believe in your narrative you said it was 52 or 52 and a half feet. Is that right? And then, but in the diagram with the red roofs that compares the heights to other heights in the surrounding area, I thought it said 59, but just get confirmation on that.
I'll try to outline it as clearly as it's a confusing metric. And there's three numbers that are relevant to the answer. One is it's about 39 foot as experienced from the sidewalk before the first setback. So that facade, that vertical extrusion is 39 feet, really in keeping with the fabric of the street. The metric from ZBA takes a mean average of the overall site, which on Middle Street is actually calculated below the sidewalk experience, and on Main Street slightly above. The ZBA
average grade.
Average grade.
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. So from a ZBA perspective, it's 52 feet flat. And then,
Okay.
sidewalk to the top of parapet, that the uppermost piece of the building is the 59 that you referenced. So those are the three dimensions.
Which sidewalk? The Main Street sidewalk?
Main Street. Yes.
Got it.
So it's experience tight. It's
Yep.
top of parapet.
I get it. And I do believe it fits in the scale of the surrounding area and the surrounding buildings. Hard to visualize sometimes. But I think that's the one. Your plan is incredibly well developed. It's beautiful. I love the green space. The variances don't seem too hard to figure out, or the waivers. And I know there's some staff input that we still need, but that's just the one thing.
Lucky.
Can I? Based on my 35 years experience as an urban planner, I want to say that this is not only an ideal redevelopment site, but I think a very interesting and well-conceived redevelopment program. Every aspect of this, splitting it into two buildings and creating the central courtyard, using the slope of the site to tuck the parking underneath. Very, very interesting architectural techniques, including the setback of the upper floors on the Main Street, all designed to minimize the sense of scale. Anybody who is going to have a knee-jerk opposition to this project will look at scale and design. And my sense is very lucky that the apartment complex on the Y site is built because it demonstrates with sensitive design on a sloped site just how much capacity a block can accommodate, and yet do so in a way that is respectful to the design of the remaining buildings. The other thing I want to talk about is the parking, because I think, again, parking becomes a knee-jerk. It's not enough. And I think from my experience of a site in this location with its transportation aspects and the alternative trip mode available, that one parking space per unit would be the minimum that I would consider acceptable. And I think that 1.1 gives just a little bit of an edge. Perhaps, I'm not sure how you distribute the parking, but perhaps the 2-bedroom tenants have an opportunity to rent a second space or something like that. But I think the parking is adequate. And I think as a point of advertising the appropriateness of this building at this site to really make clear the opportunities for non-auto trips, reducing the traffic. Again, the knee jerk will be, boy, this will really generate a lot of traffic. Given its characteristics, given its use, given the surrounding uses that will allow people to go several places on foot, I think we have to emphasize that, because again, the traffic is appropriate for the street. So I don't see anything about this project that is problematic, and I see everything that's positive.
Thank you, Beverly. Sean, do you have any comments at this point?
Comments from
Oh,
Sean.
he's still there, but he's not talking.
That's right.
I guess the only question I have is when we went through the exercise permitting the hotel 10 years ago now, right? I mean, the standby generator became an issue. So I don't know if it's contemplated to have backup generation on site.
It's a great question, Chairman. We do anticipate having a backup generator.
Okay.
There's elevators in the building. Our code would require that the elevators at certain heights have backup generator anyway, and then we will be supplying it for all the renters.
Any other questions or comments? Greg, do you have anything to add?
I'll just give you an outline of where we are in the process. So this was referred to the planning board, the Planning and Development Standing Committee, the City Council, and then to many of the municipal departments that would have a review of some form of it, whether in this kind of not for construction plan set, and then also ultimately if it goes to the building permit. So thus far, there's been feedback. There is no conservation jurisdiction. There is no comment from the health department. The building commissioner highlighted what he would typically do for a project like this, which is require a third-party review of the construction documentation when a building permit is submitted. Likewise, the fire department also would do the same for the construction level documentation. But at this point, the major comment that we've received is kind of a combination of the access issues to the site related to the fire department's review, as well as the engineering analysis of the project to ensure that it can be accommodated as designed. So the recommendation from the engineering department is to peer review the civil engineering aspect of the site at this point. And that's the limit of what we received. I think that's all the jurisdictions that would otherwise provide comment to the City Council and the Planning Board.
So do those peer reviews include the confirmation of adequacy of water and sewer?
Yes.
As well as structural integrity.
There's also construction. There's a constructability aspect of the review of the design as well. Yep. Similar to what's been done to other, the review has been of other similar projects in this environment.
So where does that leave us in terms of what we do tonight or not?
So I do think it makes sense to have all the information in front of you before you make a recommendation. The engineering department has developed the scope. We have several engineering firms that we use on an on-call basis to facilitate a quick review, not having to spend a lot of time contracting. And that will be shared with the applicant who would fund the review on behalf of those divisions.
So we should continue this to a date that everybody can agree on?
You could.
So I'm not here on the 2nd. That's only a week away.
Yep. I'm not here on the 2nd or the 16th, but I can watch the recording.
And just, I mean, typically the review process, takes a week or two to, get the scope completed and a purchase order in place. And I think the timeframes that are typically, the whole point of having on call is so that they can make a quick turnaround. But I would anticipate that would be a couple of weeks as well once they have all the documentation. So at this point, if you're not available until after the 16th, then it would probably be the first meeting in May.
May. Don't add extra planning boards where there are none.
So from the applicant standpoint, I mean, we're obviously trying to fit things in and time scale, but I think that's the first regularly scheduled meeting in May.
May 7th.
Thank you, Steve.
That sounds fine. We understand anything that we can do with regard to moving along the peer review, we're happy to do.
Fantastic.
So I move that we continue our review of the major project special permit application for 150 Main Street to our first meeting in May, which is May 7th, 2026.
Second.
So we have a motion by Jane Ramsden, second by David Rosen. I need a roll call vote, please. No, I don't need a roll call vote. Thank you.
As he's recused, I think you
Yeah.
can just do all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Great presentation, guys.
Thank you very much.
So while these guys are getting sorted out, next on the agenda, in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law 41 and the rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land in Gloucester, Gloucester Planning Board to consider a two-lot commercial subdivision filed by Energy North Incorporated entitled Schoolhouse Road Extension at 40 Sargent Street, 46 Millet Street, 10 Gale Ave, and 131R Gloucester Ave, Assessors Map 32, lots 18 and 21, map 33, lot 3, map 43, lots 1 and 2. We have a representative for this discussion, and then if you don't mind, just your name and address and affiliation for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board, Mr. Cadamatori. My name is Harley Racer with Rich May Law Firm in Boston. Address is 176 Federal Street, and I'm here with Chris Tamula from GPI. We represent Energy North Incorporated, the applicant and the purchaser of this property. We are here tonight on an application for a preliminary subdivision plan at the addresses that you mentioned. I just want to, for the record, make clear that there's one more street address in that list, and that's 18 Gale Road. You got it with the assessor's maps, but that one was left out on the street address. These 5 parcels are. I'll just share my screen here, if I may. This is the Google Maps. This is Blackburn Circle. This is the area, and here's down here is Sargent Street, and this is 40 Sargent Street, and so it's this area here, just to orient you, and then I'll go to the site plans itself. But this is a 5 contiguous parcels under single ownership that are vacant, have been essentially abandoned for years. And we are looking to make this commercial subdivision a 2-lot subdivision so that the property will be developable and marketable and useful and productive for the city. This is the current existing conditions plan here. There are a couple of buildings here that have been abandoned. If you're familiar with the site, there's been some issues with squatters, but we are looking to bring in an access easement road that comes off of Schoolhouse Road onto these under these plots. And you can see here, this is 10 Gale Road, 40 Sargent Street.
Harley,
Yes.
Just want to interrupt you for a second. You're still just on the Google map.
Oh, thank you. And let me see if I can figure out how to change that.
Harley, do you want me to share my screen and I can play Van and White for you?
Yeah, let's do that, Chris. You'll be much more adept at me than you'll be more adept. So I'll stop my share and let you take over there.
All right. I think I just sent the request to the planning board.
You should be good to go.
Great, thank you.
And if you'll just go to 2 of 6 of the plan. These are the existing conditions here. there's the five lots are irregular in shape, and they're not really conducive to development at this point. There's no real frontage on any of the parcels except for 40 Sergeant Street, and the frontage is quite small there. And there's no good access to the back lots. And so what the property has going for it, though, is that there is an easement that runs from Schoolhouse Road all the way to the property. And here is Schoolhouse Road, and the easement runs from Schoolhouse Road down to the property line. It's a permanent easement with full development rights for any uses that are permitted for roads in the city. Currently, there is a portion of it, 100 feet or so, that are paved, and we propose extending and developing this road from all the way from Schoolhouse Road to the property and then into the property to create the subdivision. And we can go to map 406 now just to show what this would look like. So this Schoolhouse Road extension, you can see the property line, and then that would be from there to Schoolhouse Road would be relying on the easement for the access, and then the interior would be a new road that would be constructed with the cul-de-sac, creating the two lots 1 and 2. We do request a waiver of the length of the road, with the having to come all the way from Schoolhouse Road, and to make lot 1 developable. We do have a request an extension from the 500-foot maximum to 740 feet, so a 240-foot extension there, to allow for the cul-de-sac to reach further into the property and give lot 1 more area to develop there. There is also an AUL on site, and you can see it outlined on the plan. We submitted also the VAUL, as well as the LSP opinion from Atlas that talked about how this piece of the development, the building of this new road, would implicate the AUL, and the opinion was that there are two areas where the AUL would be implicated. One is in a drainage basin, and the other is with the construction of part of that cul-de-sac. With respect to the stormwater detention basin, the LSP is of the opinion that because that area is not paved, that it's been exposed to the weather and isn't going to create an issue. This site had been used as a junkyard, is my understanding, previously, and that's why the AUL is there. For the cul-de-sac, the opinion is that if more than 20 cubic yards of soil would be disturbed in construction of the cul-de-sac, we would need to get a release abatement measure, a RAM plan, and we would be prepared to do that as we move forward and get into more of the specifics of the development. We can determine whether that 20 cubic yards would be disturbed. It's likely it would be, but we can't say for sure right now. We had originally, just so you know, we did originally submit this in December, and then we had a conversation with the planning director and filled out the survey of the easement all the way to Schoolhouse Road. We revised the plan and gave the supplement that we submitted on March 3rd. And we believe that this access easement is the preferred way to enter the site. We've had this property in various iterations before other boards, and this access from Schoolhouse Road is what is how it was envisioned and suggested that we try to make it work this way. And so this is what we've done here. Other than that waiver of the length of the road, we think that it's all in compliance with the rules and regulations and subdivision law. And that's basically what we have. I'll let Chris, if he has anything he wants to add on the specifics of the design on the plan, and then happy to answer any questions as well.
Hang on, before you move on to Chris, you got it about 5 minutes ago. You got into some alphabet soup there with AUL and LSB and so on and forth.
Yep.
Yeah, keeping in mind the public is watching this, can you explain to me and others what that is?
Yeah, sorry, I'm happy to do that. The AUL is it's an activity and use limitation. Because there was a use on this site in the past for a junkyard, there were some potentially some oils and other materials that were may have leached onto the asphalt. And so there's a recorded activity and use limitation that restricts certain uses. And if there are uses to occur in that area, then we are required to get the opinion of a licensed scientist to look at that and let us know, how to develop in those areas, whether you can. This one is one they're of the opinion that you can. There's a restriction on disturbing the asphalt, but if you are to do that, then there's you have to file a plan with DEP, a release abatement measure plans to ensure that it's being done properly and preventing any any release of any potentially hazardous materials. And if when this goes forward into a definitive plan, we would do an environmental impact evaluation of the entire property and the AUL's effect on developing the entire site.
So LSP has something to do with the science opinion, or is that the name
Yeah.
of the?
No, that's the
Licensed site professional.
Oh, thank you. Got it. And that's the opinion you did provide in the.
Correct. And
application?
our LSP is Atlas, and that is in the application. They go through the requirements of the AUL and then the impact that this portion of the development, this subdivision plan would have on the AUL.
Thank you.
So is the access to lot 2 going to be off the Schoolhouse Road extension, or is it going to come from Sargent Street?
It will come off of the Schoolhouse Road extension.
It will. Okay, even though it has frontage and has access from Sargent?
Correct. It would be accessible from both.
Got it. Okay.
And this would be, the commercial industrial uses it's anticipated would come from the access easement, but the Sargent Street access would still be there for for other uses.
Questions?
Yeah. So what's the planned use then?
We don't have a planned use at the moment. We are trying to get this to a developable place, and this has been a complicated project to get it to compliance with the dimensional requirements and access requirements. And so it's zoned for general industrial district, and the one thing is we don't anticipate any residential uses there. Otherwise, it is intended to be a commercial subdivision. And then after, once we get to a point where we have these lots in a developable form, then we can start to look and see what uses, could go there, if there's potential lessors for it, and what uses they would have, and design it to those needs.
I got it. Thank you.
Needed to step out. What is the zoning on this, please?
It's general industrial.
John, anything from you? Sequestered.
No, thank you.
Greg or Eric, do you have any?
Sure. And there are no simple applications anymore, are there? So I appreciate Attorney Racer's stick-to-itiveness with this site. They did take a couple of different approaches to provide access, starting with the Zoning Board of Appeals and looking at not necessarily using the access from Sargent Street, but a similar approach to accessing the site via the easement. There's been a fair amount of documentation that is being reviewed by the solicitor. It is definitely a little bit unusual to be starting the subdivision, through an easement that's connected to a public way, but he has provided the background for that. So I anticipate that we'll have some comment from the solicitor on that. Likewise, similar, to other projects, it has been referred also to the Board of Health, as well as Conservation Commission and others. And I expect to have their comment probably in a shorter time frame, as there's no peer review necessarily at this point. It is a preliminary plan to show the general layout and conformance with the subdivision regulations, to basically read the board in terms of what they've suggested that they might require a waiver from. I think the question on most people's minds is, how would the site be used if the road was built? But the focus at this point is definitely providing access to the site, because without a subdivision road, there's really no cure to providing access so that somebody could pursue any of the uses that are allowed in the use table. So I expect that we'll probably have comment from the Board of Health / Health Department, as well as initial read from the Conservation Division, and also comment from the solicitor. So
All those could be done in parallel.
those will all probably be provided by either the next meeting or the meeting after that. The solicitor is away this week, but probably by the second meeting in April.
And including a list of waivers. Great.
So they were a little bit identified, not firm. I think the length of the subdivision road with the limitation of 500 feet, as well as, and it's escaping me, the other dimension that you had mentioned, Attorney Racer.
I think that's the only waiver that we're requesting at this with this plan.
So the only other thing that occurred, again, there were some questions about the use of the easement, which have been supplemented. At the time of the original submission, there wasn't survey detail of what's been constructed in that easement. And the only thing I say to you, Chris, there's one notation that says that the grade of the road is plus or minus. So either it meets standard or it might be slightly over the maximum grade requirement. And those are probably typically things that are of concern to the fire department.
Can I just ask the dumbest of questions? This is a very complicated partition with lots of junk on it from previous renditions. Once the partition is granted and it's resurveyed, will old lot lines and old easements be eliminated from it so that it's clear to everybody what exactly is what? Because I'm looking at this right now, and I mean, it's real tough to read.
Yeah, they would. These are all under common ownership, and once this gets recorded, those would all collapse and extinguish. It would be, just the subdivision plan with the single road going in.
Perfect.
So one last question. All the land that is outside of lot 1 and lot 2, what happens to that?
Well, all of the land is
Schoolhouse Road extension, everything above that.
That's part of lot 2.
Correct. And there's a correct. And you can see there's a wetland there. And so for dimensional requirements and practicality, we've made it 2 lots, but that portion of it is wetlands, and I don't think there's any plan to ever develop that part of it.
And given the traffic issues coming in there, you've got the entrance to the bank and the Y across the street from where the extension road comes out onto Schoolhouse Road. Does somebody look at that in the review process?
That would be as part of a definitive submission.
Okay.
So Harley, you had mentioned that if you you're looking at right now the potential impact of the construction of the subdivision and drainage components on the AUL. Is it safe to say that the development of the lots will require a response action? I mean, in order
Yes,
to dig foundations, you're going to go beyond that limit, but you're just trying
correct.
to understand whether there's an action needed just for the road construction.
That's correct, and we fully anticipate that we'll need, a RAM plan, and perhaps more when it comes time to do the development of the properties of the sites themselves. But we also, based on the opinion that we've received, it's not something that's it's not undoable. This is developable. It's not a major cause of concern. It's that there's some oil that's leaked onto some asphalt, and it's mainly the asphalt that is the concern. So, moving that, or building over it, there are options that we would be able to use to do that in a safe way.
So what's a reasonable date to continue
I
this
think
to?
the April 16th meeting.
Okay. Does that work for the applicant? If we continue this,
Yes, that works.
application for preliminary subdivision.
Yes, that works for us. I appreciate that.
This is a preliminary application for
It's a preliminary subdivision review.
preliminary subdivision review. Okay. So I move that we continue the preliminary subdivision review for a 2-lot commercial subdivision for entitled Schoolhouse Road Extension at 40 Sargent Street, 46 Millet Street, 10 Gale Avenue, and 131R Gloucester Avenue to our regularly scheduled meeting of April 16, 2026.
Second.
We have a motion by Jane Remsen, second by Steve Yost. I need a roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
Member Remsen,
Yes.
Member Bookin,
Yes.
Member Rosen, Member Henry,
Yes.
and Member Yost.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Minutes over our time limit, but we'll get this one in. So in accordance with the GZO Section 5.10 Watershed Protection Overlay District, Planning Board to review the application submitted by Applied Materials, Inc., Langen Engineering and Environmental Services for proposed Logistics Center Phase 1, early enablement utility and site work at 11 Dory Road, Assessor's Map 262, lots 16, 26, and 32.
Good evening.
Mute your microphone on your computer.
Sorry.
That worked? Okay, good. Good evening. I'm John Perry, site civil engineer with Langen, here with John Goodwin from Applied Materials, the applicant, and I'm here with Brian Slozak from SGA Architects, who's the architect.
John, and this
You're going to want to speak right into that mic. You might want to.
So I get a little height on the other. Second.
The musician.
Okay. Is that better? Okay, excellent.
Thank you, John.
Just shift so I can stay close. And I'm going to share my screen here. Just a minute. My coworker Maggie stole it from me, but I was gonna. Okay. So the site is at 11 Dory Road, and it's an existing 22-acre site in the business park district. It's also in the watershed protection overlay district. It's an existing commercial industrial facility. It's partially active right now with a tenant in there, Resonics, as you can see in that blue area. The ultimate plan from Applied Materials is to demolish the existing building and develop a new logistics center on site. But the existing tenant that I just mentioned will be remaining for a period of possibly 3 to 5 years. So the construction is going to occur in phases. So we're here tonight seeking approval for just the first early enablement phase to install new utilities for Brazonics to keep them operational while construction occurs around the facility. And actually, we submitted our full application for the full design, the full build out actually earlier today. So we'll be back before you for the full development next month, I suppose. This is the existing site plan. As you can see, there's a few wetlands on site and shown in green. The two northernmost ones are isolated wetlands, and the lower one, wetland C, that's a bordering vegetated wetland. We did go before the Conservation Commission a couple months ago and filed an ANRAD plan with them, and we got our order from them. And they have opined that the isolated wetlands are not subject to buffer zones. So as I will show you in a minute, all of the work we propose for this first phase will be out of the wetland buffers. Okay, next slide. I'm gonna take control here. It's just better if I do. Okay. Bear with me, I'm sorry. So I just want to flash up on the screen really quickly. This will take a second to pop up. This is our site plan that was submitted with the application. And what you see here in this dashed line, this U shape, that's the footprint of the proposed building that will be there with the full build out. And as you can see in this center area, that's where Brazonics exists and will remain, and will be essentially building around them. But the existing utilities for that portion of the building largely come out the south. So as we're demolishing that portion of the building, we need to make sure that Brazonics remains operational. So we've developed a plan to do that. And this plan you see here on the screen shows our routing of new utilities to the northern side of the building. So water and sewer will tie in down here to the south. There's an existing water service that comes in the back of the existing building along the property line. We're going to tie in there for domestic and fire protection and route it northerly around our future build out, which is why it's a little bit of an awkward shape if you're looking at it out of context. But the utilities have been planned to go around the future build out so that we don't have to do things twice. So that's the blue is the water, the domestic and the fire. The purple is sewer, and there will be, from the northern edge of the Brazonics building, will be gravity sewer down to a pump station here in the kind of north east corner of the site here, and then it'll go via force main down to, and there's an existing gravity line that kind of goes cross country south to north here, to just south of this wind turbine. There's existing roof drainage that comes out the eastern side of the building now that is routed into this isolated wetland here. We're going to just reroute that slightly so that it, again, it's functional during construction. And then similarly, we'll be bringing in a new electric service, probably overhead to some point, and then there'll be a new transformer out front here as well. So we're doing the least amount of work that we can in order to bring the utilities in. There will be some grading go to the plan set here. A second to load. So there will be some grading and retaining wall that we install with this first phase. Again, because we want to bring everything up to what the proposed grade will be. We don't want the new utilities, down low, and we have to go and build up, and then we have these, really, really deep utilities, which wouldn't be good for if they need to be serviced in the future. So we're bringing up to grade with this retaining wall, which will actually be extended a little bit in the full build out, and then again here along closer to the street, this retaining wall here, and you'll see in the full build plans that it's that specific shape and elevation, because that's where the new driveway will be planned. Kind of rough grade that in with some in stabilize with some riprap. There will be some just minor interior work to the Brazonics area to fit out, to do some tenant fit outs, and to establish a couple of new loading dock doors in the front here. But we will be maintaining circulation, ADA access, and parking throughout. And again, we have a full plan. We'll be able to get into a lot more detail on the future condition here. But we want to be able to get started on this enabling work because there's a really tight timeline on the project. So that's why we're seeking approval in a little bit of a phased condition here. So happy to answer questions.
So just to confirm, the only thing in front of us tonight is a special permit for the utility rerouting through the watershed protection overlay district. Did you show a slide? Maybe I missed it with where the watershed protection overlay district boundary is compared to your utility rerouting?
I don't have a slide to show that.
Well, how about go back to the slide that I might have been the first one that showed where the utility rerouting is.
That's this one in the color here.
Oh, that's that one? Yeah, but
Oh, the wetlands.
no, I don't care about the wetland. I mean,
Ooh.
obviously, okay,
Hey.
sorry, I care about the
Strike that
wetlands.
from the record.
That is not in front of, the wetlands are not in front of us tonight. It's the watershed protection overlay district boundary, right?
I may be misspeaking, but I believe the whole property may be in.
So let me, if you'll stop sharing, I'll share my screen just to give you a sense of that. And it is something that should be probably put on the final plan set, because there's a certain amount of the work that actually is not subject to the watershed protection overlay district. And it also depends on what the final grading of the site will be and where the water is directed. Just wait. There we go.
Okay.
So this is the approximation of what is tributary to the Babson Reservoir. Obviously, this is just based on the land surface. There are also drainage systems that are already in place that could alter that line. But what you just saw in the plan set, much of the grading work is over in this area to level the site for the expansion of the building of that U shape on this side. Sorry, I've seen these plans many times for the last couple of months, so I know them pretty well. My only question about just sequencing, the retaining walls are a part of that first phase,
Yes.
correct? Currently, where does the roof runoff from the existing building go? Is the entire footprint of that building directed to that wetland area, or just that addition portion in the front?
The majority.
And I'll give you back control to to show us things.
The majority of the existing building actually has two, and I can try to zoom in on the existing survey here. There are two pipes in the back, one here and one here. Those are existing roof drains that drain off the southern end, and there's a swale that kind of goes in either direction here along the property line that handles the water there. So probably about half of the roof runoff area, I would say, probably goes out to the back, and then the other bit, which is Brazonics area here. And I'll just try to zoom in to show you that connection.
So the only thing that's directed through that new level spreader is just the roof runoff from the Brazonics area.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So again, just from a sequence perspective, now that we've seen the main project, that it was submitted over the last couple of days, I know that there's some replication and grading around the northern isolated wetland, and then there's a significant stockpile area that's identified beyond the wall. So I'm just trying to understand, how do you gain access to that area after that grading is done? It looks like a little bit of Mike Mulligan and the steam shovel. And I know the site's getting very small fast because you're kind of working with trying to maintain that use in the center.
Yeah, it's only part of the wall that we're going to be building initially. The grading here, so it's just this northern bit that you see here, and then this is really just bringing the grade up a little bit to get the utilities in, and then as you've probably seen now, our full build plans have a stormwater basin down here.
Yep.
So we'll be able to access that through
From the southern portion of the site?
Yeah, through kind of this area of my hands.
Okay.
We won't need to get down in through here because there's that isolated wetland. We won't want to go in and disturb that or anything.
And so that replication area that you have in the northern part, that's going to be after the level spreader, or will it be done at the same time?
That will be done after. We have a notice of intent into the Conservation Commission as well. Yep. So that's just to build the rerouting of the roof drainage, build the level spreader, and then we'll go in and we'll create the little, it's just a fairly small isolated wetland replication area. And then it'll be nice because we'll have the roof runoff there that can feed that already, that can feed that system.
Questions?
Well, are we trying to vote on the special permit tonight?
I think based on the comments that we received, and most of this is kind of in the wheelhouse of the city engineer, who thankfully reviewed this before she left the city of Gloucester. Not a whole lot of concern at this point. I mean, other than stabilization, erosion control measures, and making sure that those are continuous throughout the phases of the project. The bigger review is going to occur with the simultaneous application of the planning board's watershed protection overlay district and site plan review for the larger project, as well as the Conservation Commission review. So we'll be working to coordinate that so that there'll be one stormwater review for the two projects to inform both. That's really the bigger project is the bigger concern.
Right.
But understand that, the timeline that the applicant is trying to work under, rerouting utilities, they're trying to get ahead of that.
So it's helpful to get that done today?
Yes.
Okay. Summary. So there was quite a helpful page in the information that we received in the application, which you didn't review. Would you like to review it? Because in order for us to grant a watershed protection overlay district special permit, it has to meet those 6 criteria, which I believe it does, but maybe just summarize it quickly for the public record.
Yeah, the points that are in the application.
Yep. Or I can, if you'd like.
There's 6 points. Social, economic, community needs. I can put it up on the screen, actually.
Great. Might be the first one. Yeah, it is that one. It's the second page.
Yep, so we did address all those criteria.
Right. So you don't actually need to read them. I just want for the public to know that as a planning board, this is what we read and this is what we reviewed, and these are the criteria that we need to apply in order to favorably grant a special permit for rerouting the utilities in the watershed protection overlay district.
So this is actually a public hearing as well. So we do have a few attendees online as well as some folks here. If anybody would like to make a comment supporting this application or opposing this application, this is an opportunity to come forward and state your name and address for the record, and hopefully keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, since we're on the late hour of 7:20. No pressure. Okay, seeing none, we'll move along. So next steps for.
At this point, I don't think we won't receive any further review or
Okay.
comment for this initial phase,
Okay.
provided, and there is a sediment and erosion control plan that's in the plan set for the limited first phase. And again, they will be back here again shortly to review the entirety of the project.
So we can close the public hearing and
You can do so.
vote on the special permit. Okay, I move that we close the public hearing for the special permit for the watershed protection overlay district for 11 Dory Road.
Second.
I have a motion by Jane Remsen, second by Beverly Bookin. I need a roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan?
Yes.
Member Remsen?
Yes.
Member Bookin?
Yes.
Member Henry?
Yes.
Member Rosen? Member Yost?
Yes.
Now I move that we approve the special permit for the watershed protection overlay district application submitted by Applied Materials for site work and utility rerouting at 11 Dory Road.
Second.
I have a motion by Jane Remsen, seconded by Beverly Bookins. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan?
Yes.
Member Remsen?
Yes.
Member Bookin?
Yes.
Member Henry?
Yes.
Member Rosen?
Yes.
And Member Yost?
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Okay, so we'll jump back to continued meetings. So amend the Gloucester zoning ordinance section 6 definitions by amending the definition structure. Anything constructed? Thank you. So I'm going to accept the motion to continue the flagpole discussion to April 16th.
So moved. I won't be here.
Thank you. I need a second, please.
Second.
So we have a motion by Jane Ramsden, second by David Rosen. I need a roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan?
Yes.
Member Remsen?
Yes.
Member Bookin?
Yes.
Member Henry?
Yes.
Member Rosen?
Yes.
And Member Yost?
Yes.
So second on the continuance list is a request to continue to April 2nd, the discussion for Road A at 598 and 600 Essex Ave. I'll accept a motion to continue.
So moved.
We have a motion by Jane Ramsden,
Second.
by Steve Yost. All in favor with a roll call vote, please?
Member Noonan?
Yes.
Member Remsen?
Yes.
Member Bookin?
Yes.
Member Henry?
Yes.
Member Rosen?
Yes.
Member Yost?
Yes.
A minute for some minutes. Jane?
I had one comment on page 2 on the flagpole discussion. It says City Attorney Suzanne Egan suggested adding a stipulation for flagpoles as a customary yard accessory in section 3. I feel like she said a lot more than that. And that might not be an accurate summary of what she said. But I don't remember exactly what she said.
You're talking about this paragraph at the top of the page here?
No, on page 2, 3/4 of the way down, number 2, under the flagpole discussion, it just, there's one sentence saying what Suzanne Egan said. Anybody else remember what?
Say a lot.
That was a long discussion, so I guess we could probably continue the minutes and have
Yeah.
Alicia take a look at that
Yeah.
section.
Okay. Or take a look at her memo because she said what she said in her memo
Mhm.
and
Okay.
just make a little summary of
So
that.
we'll continue those into a future date.
Okay.
You need to take action to do that?
You don't. They'll stay draft until they're amended.
Anything else? Eric, you got anything?
No, I do not.
Quiet over there. All right, so a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by David Rosen, second by Beverly Bookin.
Member Noonan,
All in favor with a roll call vote, please. Yes.
Member Remsen,
Yes.
Member Bookin,
Yes.
Member Henry,
Yes.
Member Rosen,
Yes.
and Member Yost.
Yes.